So welcome again, everybody. Welcome to Rockland Centers for Spiritual Living. Once again, I am revmelissa, the spiritual director and senior minister here. And I just want to acknowledge Miss Sally, who is Ira's mother. Happy Mother's Day to you, Miss Sally, and happy Mother's Day to all of our members here who are mothers and members, non-members who are mothers. Happy Mother's Day. So I mentioned at the beginning of the service, if you are willing to come on camera, that will be wonderful. I'm looking at a lot of boxes with names on them right now. But if it's too much, it's okay. It's okay. I'm just inviting you once again to be seen, So I came across a quote by Rumi about mothers, and I shared this today on our Facebook page for Centers for Spiritual Living. Rumi said, "We are born of love. Love is our mother." So welcome again, and thank you for spending part of your Mother's Day with us here at Rockland. So our main theme is revision, feeling tone, right? And it's the second component of our annual theme, remembering, revisioning, and renewing. And so last Sunday, I started with, "Can you feel it?" Right? Can you feel it? That song from the Jackson 5, I share that it had been playing in my head just out of the blue. I woke up and that song was in my head, and I changed the sermon from, I think, "What's on your spice rack?" to "Can you feel it?" And that song, the message of that song, similar to Imagine by John Lennon, that song, "Can You Feel It?" is a mental equivalent of what the world can be. It was the Jackson 5, and Michael Jackson wrote the lyrics to that song. It was his mental equivalent of visioning a world that, as CSL says, a world that works for everyone. And I just want to share the opening verse again. If you look around the world, if you look around, the whole world is coming together now. Can you feel it? Can you feel it? Can you feel it? Feel it in the air. The wind is taking it everywhere. Can you feel it? Can you feel it? Can you feel it? Right? And so that was the invitation for us to feel our lives, to feel the mental equivalent that we're building for our lives. It's not just about thinking about it, right? Change your thinking, change your life. Yes, but also the feeling tone of what it is that you are thinking, right? And those two things have to be in alignment. So all that happens, right, last Sunday. And then this past Friday, something else happened with that song. So I haven't actually heard the song played anywhere for quite some time. And I get in my car on Friday to pick up Zola from the train station, turn on the radio, and what song comes on? What song is playing? Can you feel it? So I went crazy in the car. I was laughing hysterically. I started singing the song out loud. And then I found myself like bursting into tears, just bursting into tears with just joy and confirmation. I really felt like the universe was winking at me, just saying yes, yes, yes to me. And so that synchronistic moment of that song playing on the radio was really confirmation of the feeling tone that I feel is being built here at Rockland CSL, right? It was not a coincidence. I shared that story with a couple of folks. They said, "Oh, what a coincidence." I was like, it's not a coincidence. It was synchronistic. It was synchronistic. I came across a quote from Carl Jung, and he said this. He said, "Synchronicity reveals the meaningful connection between the subjective and objective worlds." So we know in our science of mind teaching that there are not two minds, right? Only two names, and they go by subjective mind and objective mind. Or as Ernest Holmes writes in the Science of Mind text, mind comes unto two classifications: the objective or our conscious mind, and the subjective or our subconscious, unconscious mind. And he writes, the subjective or subconscious mind acts upon our thoughts. It is the mental law of our being and the creative factor within us. So I believe that I attracted that song to be played right at that time, because my mental equivalent was so strong, right? The energy and my focus and attention on it was so strong that it just magnetized, and there it was, right there at that moment, a synchronistic moment. And I'm sure that all of you have had that experience of something happening seemingly out of the blue, but it was really a synchronistic moment, right? Something as simple as thinking about calling somebody and then they call you. Or something as simple as deciding, you know what, I'm going to go a different way to the supermarket, and then you run into somebody, right? So we all have had those moments. So we can use those experiences as we continue to build our mental equivalent. So we know there is one subjective mind, and we call our subjective mind one law. It's one law. I love that we have a bunch of laws, right? We talk about the law of attraction, the law of mental equivalent, the law of correspondence, the law of cause and effect, but there is one law. There is one law that is being expressed in a multitude of ways, right? Because I think God is generous in that way, right? Well, maybe they won't get it this way. Maybe they'll get it that way, right? So we have all these options that we can use to build our mental equivalent, right? So when we build our mental equivalent, we're building it into something, right? We are making use of it with a capital I-T, and we're drawing it into us, right? We're making that connection. So what I know is it's impossible to think one thing and produce another thing. Impossible. You could try to trick yourself if you want to, but it's impossible to think one thing and produce another. And so synchronicity is the demonstration of the activity of the one mind in action. That's how I view it. So we are consistently drawing from life what we think into it, either constructively or destructively. We build a mental equivalent by what we are thinking into the law, and we also build a mental equivalent by what we are feeling into the law. So remember, it's impossible to think one thing and produce another. So when I say, can you feel it? Can you feel it? Can you feel it? All right. So I hope you're doing okay with the feeling it. Don't lose the feeling. Don't lose the feeling, because when we feel it, things happen, things start to move. But what happens, right? Sometimes we stop feeling it when something doesn't go right. Sometimes we don't feel it if we can't see it right before us. Sometimes we don't feel it if everybody else isn't feeling it, right? So we have to remember our feeling tone is so critical. And the reason why I'm spending this much time recapping this again, because I really want to stress how important the feeling tone is, right? Okay, so let's get to today's message. Can you keep a secret? Can you keep a secret? How many of you say yes? Just raise your hands, or, oh, okay, all right. I think I'm a great secret keeper. Did someone say no? I think I'm a great secret keeper. I'm thinking about a family member who is not a great secret keeper. So if you ever want anything to be known, you tell this one particular family member and everybody will know what the secret is. So I know you probably thought, given the title of the talk today is Can You Keep a Secret, that I was going to focus a lot on the elements of secret, right? Yes, no? Yes, okay, all right. Nope. I want us to just spend a little time on this one particular word, keep. Keep. So this is the definition of keep. We think we know the definition of words too, but I just want to ground us in the definition. Keep as a verb, to hold as one's own, to retain in one's power or possession, not to lose or part with, to keep anything in the memory, mind, or heart, to have in custody for security or preservation. And the origins of the word keep is to observe, heed, watch, take, or my favorite, to stare, to stare. So to keep is to hold as one's own. So the secret that you are keeping is what you are holding as your own. So in order to keep it, you must retain it in your power and not lose or part with it, right? You don't part with it in your memory, in your mind, or in your heart. You must retain it in order to build your mental equivalent. So we're going to start staring at our mental equivalent. This is how we're going to keep it, right? Because we are the custodians of building our mental equivalent, not just for Rockland CSL, but also in our individual lives, right? Some of us don't want to look at our lives, but we need to stare. We need to stare and take possession of it, right? As we build our mental equivalent. So we're keeping it in our memory. And what's our memory? Where is our memory resting? Our memory is the seat of the subjective mind. The subjective mind is the seat of memory, right? That is where memory is, our subjective mind, and our subconscious mind is where our memory resides, right? So we are keeping it in our memory, and we don't have to do anything about that. It's there, right? It is there. We're keeping it in our mind, and we know already that when we talk about mind, we're talking about one mind, the subjective and the objective mind, the conscious and the subconscious mind that is co-creating with the universal mind, yes? And we're keeping it in our heart. Our heart is the representation of the feeling tone. Our heart is the representation of can you feel it? Yes? So you have the custodian and you have the custody and you have the preservation, right? This is our responsibility in building our mental equivalent. And this is the secret that we are keeping. That is the secret that we are keeping, right? Emmett Fox writes in the book, The Mental Equivalent, and The Mental Equivalent is our companion book this month. He writes, you already have a mental equivalent for everything that is in your life today. And you must destroy the patterns for the things you do not want, and then they will disappear. You must build a new pattern or mental equivalent for the things you want, and then they will come into your life. So how do you keep it? How do you keep this secret, this mental equivalent that you are building? How do you do that, right? So Emmett offers what he refers to as the secrets for keeping your mental equivalent. So I want to share that with you. So Emmett says that in order to build a mental equivalent, we need to make sure that we're building it from a place that is harmonious, right? So first we want to get in a place of harmony within ourselves, right? So keep in mind the definition of keep. What are you keeping? What is being kept? Let's keep harmony within ourselves, right? How do you get yourself into a harmonious position or a harmonious feeling tone? What are some of the things that you do for yourself to help yourself be harmonious? So for me, one of the things that works like magic almost is music. Music will get me in a harmonious state of mind. Without a doubt, I don't care how low I might be feeling. There are certain songs. One of them is a gospel song called God Is. Google it. That song will get me right every single time. It goes, God is the source and the strength of my life. He moves all pain, misery, and strife. He promised to keep me, never to leave me. And it goes on and on. And by the time that first verse is done, I'm good. I am good. I am good. The song that did it, Cheryl gave me a hallelujah. I see you, Cheryl. The song that did it for me when I was a little girl, if my mother sang this song to me, I knew all was right in the world. You are my sunshine. Oh, that song would put me in a place where I felt like I was like the star. I was the star. So what is it that does it for you? Kristen said, it's Hafiz does it for Kristen. Yes, yes.
Ira and Julie singing their Hafez album just
okay. All right.
up, man.
There you go. The Levins. Listen to the Levins. That will get you in a harmonious space, right? So what we're feeling is important, right? As we keep our mental equivalent, that's what we're keeping. We're keeping our mental equivalent. To hold as one's own. This is the definition. I just want to repeat it. To retain in one's power, not to lose or part with, to keep anything in the memory, mind, or heart. And if you can't remember that, just remember to stare. Just stare. Go within and stare. Stare at your mental equivalent. Stare at your feeling tone. Stare at it, right? Stare at it. So let's unpack Emmett Fox's 4 secrets. I think there are 4 or 5 secrets that he shares in that little book about how we can keep our mental equivalent, right? So first he says, keep the mental equivalent of what it is that you want. He says the secret of successful living is to build up the mental equivalent of what you want and to get rid of, to expunge the mental equivalent that you do not want. It sounds so simple, right? I'm just going to get rid of what I don't want and I'm going to have what I do want, right? Before this talk is over, we would have gone back into our old pattern of what it is that we don't want. So we really have to be vigilant about changing our thought and keeping it changed. We change our thinking and then we change right back into it again. So keeping our thought changed is how we keep our mental equivalent, right? He says, number 2, the secret to accomplish is to change your thought and to keep it changed. So we're not flip-flopping. We're not going back and forth. So to change the thought, we have to replace it with something else. So it's not enough to just say, I'm going to change this thought, this habit, this pattern of being, I'm going to change it, but then we don't replace it with anything. And I know we're all familiar with this. This is not new news, right? We all know this, but it can be challenging, right? To keep it changed. So what do? We stare at it. We pay attention to it. We focus our attention on it. We get into that harmonious space within ourselves, right? We take possession of it. So that's 1 and 2. 3, he says, keep your attention and focus concentrated on harmony and success. It is not willpower. Some of us think it takes a lot of willpower. I got to make this happen, right? No, it's not willpower. It's God's power. Let will off the hook. It's not will's power, it's God's power. We are using God's power. There is a force for good in the universe, and we can use it. We don't have to create it. We don't have to make it. We just need to use it. Yes? So don't be tense. Don't tense up about it, right? I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to get this, right? We're so tense, right? Thinking that we're going to make it happen. But when you are tense, you're always looking from the outside in. It takes us off of our focus, actually, right? Emmett says that tension is probably the greatest failure to demonstrate. So the mind always works ineffectively when we are tense. And this is probably one of the things that I love about transcendental meditation. I shared that I've been practicing TM since the beginning of the year, and it has totally transformed my meditation practice, totally transformed it like nothing else has ever transformed for me in practicing different forms of meditation. And one of the things that one of the instructions is sit comfortably, connect, close your eyes, wait a minute, and just be easy and effortlessly. Just be easy and effortlessly, right? And that's how we can be with building our mental equivalent. Not tense, but let's be easy about it, right? Let's sit for a minute before we spring into action, right? With that hyped up energy. So speaking of action, that's the 4th secret in keeping your mental equivalent. Emmett Fox writes, keep true action. And I spoke about this a little bit last Sunday. He writes, believe what you are thinking, and to prove that you believe it, you must act the part. Act your part as though the new condition were already in being in your outer world. This is not faking it until you make it. So fake it till you make it is one of those terms that always rubs me the wrong way. I never liked it, and I could never articulate why. And so now I can, because we're not faking it. We're believing it, right? We're acting as if. It doesn't say, it is done unto you as you fake believe. No, no. It is done unto you as you believe. And even before that, I talked about this weekend in SIP. Even before it is done unto you as you believe, there's one word that people leave out of that verse from the Bible consistently. The first word is go. Go. It is done unto you as you believe. So there is action that we must take in our believing. It's not just going to happen. We have our part to do, right? So we are keeping true action, true action. And this is what Emmett says about true action. He says, true activity is always from the inward out. And that false activity is to work from without in. So if you're working from within out, your work is alive and it will be productive. But if you're working from the outside in, your work is dead and it will have a bad effect on you, right? So we could be very busy in our lives, right? Busy, 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 but not really getting done what we need to get done that's in alignment with our mental equivalent, right? So I shared last week also about my experience of false activity, right? I found myself in false activity when I accepted this very high position, paying a whole bunch of money, and was miserable, was absolutely miserable, right? And that was because it wasn't harmonious for me. It just was not harmonious for me. And I was tense about it. I was trying to make it work, right? And after 3 long weeks, I said, no, no, no. I choose my mental equivalent. I'm keeping my mental equivalent of working with and as joy, right? So we also need to know what we are willing to say no to in order to keep our mental equivalent. We have to demonstrate discernment about keeping our mental equivalent. Yes? I often ask myself, is what I'm about to say yes to alive for me or dead for me? I check in with myself. Does this feel harmonious or inharmonious, right? Is this something that I'm engaging in from within first or from without? And then I stare at it. I stare at it. And then I make a decision, right? Because being busy doesn't necessarily mean that we're keeping our mental equivalent. And this has been said in so many ways, and I found a couple that I want to share. Socrates said, beware the busyness of a barren life. Beware the busyness of a barren life. So are you busy and your life is barren? If it is, you may not be keeping your mental equivalent, right? Ernest Holmes put it this way: the doorway to the absolute stands open at the center of our intuitive perception, right? So our intuition is always guiding us, right? Our intuition keeps, I like to think of my intuition as keeping the high watch of my mental equivalent, right? And it will start speaking to me. Oh, Melissa, come back, love. Come back. Where you going, girl? Come here. Sit down for a minute. Look at this, right? Or I'll have a dream. right? So there's a doorway to the absolute. And what is the absolute? God, universe, source, life itself, right? It's always open at the center of our intuition, right? Because what? Intuition is God as man, God as woman, God as us. That is intuition. So let's pay attention to that. Emmett Fox puts it this way: the door of the soul opens inward. So we have to go within. Check with our soul, check with our source. It opens inward. And Lao Tzu says it like this in the Tao Te Ching: within, this is where the world's treasure has always been. Within. Yes. Within, this is where the world's treasure has always been. Not without, within. So let's go there. Let's keep it there. Let's keep it within, right? Because we don't want a barren life, right? Does anyone have a mental equivalent of a barren life? I don't think so. We want a vibrant life. We want to live fully alive, right? We're not living half alive. We're living fully alive. Yes, we are. So what is pulling us? What is pulling us inward, right? And as soon as I said that, I thought about Michael Bernard Beckwith, who oftentimes says that we get, that pain will push us until the vision pulls us, right? And so our mental equivalent is the pull. It is the pull. And our revisioning for Rockland CSL is the pull, right? It is the pull of our mental equivalent that we are building together as a community. And let me remind us of what we are staring at. We're staring at expansion, at love, spiritual, light, grow, acceptance, joy, open, and supportive. Those were the 9 qualities. Those were the 9 qualities of God's idea that we received during our 6 months of visioning. That is the foundation of our mental equivalent that we are keeping, not just for Rockland, but for each and every one of us. And so now we get to possess it. We get to stare at it, right? Because we're building that mental equivalent. We're keeping the expansion of love as the mental equivalent for Rockland CSL and for our lives. The expansion of love. What does that feel like? Can you feel the expansion of love from within? And it will be expressed without, guaranteed, because that is the law. That is how the law works. So some of us started our 30-day mental equivalent challenge last Sunday. And some of us started it throughout the week, because I've been talking about it during SIP all week. And some of you have said yes. Some of you have said, I don't know. Some of you have said nothing. So it's time. It's time to make a decision about keeping your mental equivalent, right? The thing that you want to see grow from within outward, right? So let me remind you of what the 30-day mental equivalent challenge is. And you can choose today to say yes, or you could stay in that I don't know space. I would encourage you to make a decision, because until you make a decision, nothing moves. Oh, I wish I could remember that quote about divine providence. Until you make a decision, nothing moves. Nothing moves. So today is my day 8 of the 30-day mental equivalent challenge. So we're identifying a thought, a behavior, a habit that we want to change. And we're replacing it with what it is that we believe with what we want to have, right? And believing you can have it is critical. Believe you can have it, okay? Believe you can have it. So we're changing the thought and we're keeping it changed. Changing the thought, keeping it changed. And we're spending our time, our attention, and our focus on that, right? We're staring at it. We're keeping that mental equivalent. And we're doing so through true action. We're keeping true action. So check out what you're doing throughout the day. What is your activity engaged in? True activity or false activity? And this is just for the next 30 days, and then you can see how you want to proceed, right? And then lastly, when we say, can you keep a secret? This is it. The secret that we are keeping is we're not talking about the old thought anymore. We're not talking about it anymore. Okay? And have discernment about who you share your mental equivalent with, because they may not be able to keep a secret. They may not have the feeling tone of harmony about your mental equivalent. So we want to protect it and hold it as sacred. So have discernment about who you share it with. And so there we have it. Keep the mental equivalent that you want. Keep your thought changed. Don't go back. Keep your attention and focus concentrated on harmony and success. Keep true action and keep it to yourself. All right. All right. And if you want to do the 30-day mental equivalent challenge, you can put it in the comments. And this is what we're doing every day. This is our practice every day to build our mental equivalent. So for our spiritual mind treatment, I wanted to do something in honor of Mother's Day. And I found a beautiful poem by Khalil Gibran, and you might be familiar with it. It's called Your Children. So I just invite you to go within. Close your eyes if you want to, and just listen to the words of this poem. And let's just take a breath together. Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. And though they are with you, they do not belong to you. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. You may house their bodies, but not their souls, for their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you. For life goes not backwards, nor tarries with yesterday. You are the bows from which your children, as living arrows, are sent forth. The archer sees the mark upon the path of the infinite, and he bends you with his might, that his arrow might go swift and far. Let your bendings in the archer's hand be for happiness. For even as he loves the arrow that flies, so does he love the bow that is stable. And so it is. Amen.